On my birthday, my brother discovered I inherited 9 million. My family said I should share it because he has kids. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel has been losing some traction, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, it's free, and it helps us keep bringing you more great stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can keep this channel growing. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into today's story. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, and I've changed a few details to protect my privacy. My name is Sarah Mitchell, I'm 35 years old, and this is the story of how my 9 million inheritance turned my family upside down. You know that feeling when you're invisible in your own family? When you're the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who will always figure it out somehow? That was me for 34 years. Sarah Mitchell, the family afterthought, the backup plan, the person who gets a text message instead of a phone call. I'm sitting here in my tiny one-bedroom apartment above Chen's dumpling house on Maple Street, the smell of five-spice and soy sauce permanently embedded in my furniture, trying to figure out how to tell this story. The radiator is making that god-awful clanking sound it makes every winter, and my upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, is playing her telenovelas too loud again. This is my life. Or was my life, until 3 months ago when everything changed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about my brother Derek first, because you can't understand my story without understanding his. Derek Mitchell, 2 years older, 6'2", with mom's green eyes and dad's easy charm. Derek, who got his first car at 16, a used Honda Civic, but still, while I was told I could borrow mom's 2003 Corolla if I paid for my own gas. Derek, who went to state on a partial football scholarship while I worked 3 part-time jobs to afford community college. Derek, who married his college girlfriend Jessica in a $30,000 wedding that mom and dad somehow managed to fund, while I've been single for 4 years because apparently you're just too picky, Sarah, and maybe if you put yourself out there more. Derek, who now lives in a 4-bedroom colonial in Westchester with Jessica and their 2 kids, Emma, 8, and Tyler, 5, and works as a regional sales manager for some medical device company, making decent money, but never quite enough. Derek, who calls mom and dad twice a week, sends them professional family photos every Christmas, and somehow always needs just a little help with the mortgage, or the kids' school clothes, or the minivan payment. And then there's me. I've been working at Morrison Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm downtown, for 6 years. I make $52,000 a year, which isn't terrible, but it's not exactly rolling in dough either. My apartment costs $100 a month, which leaves me with enough for groceries, my beaten-up 2012 Nissan Sentra, and not much else. I buy my clothes at Target, my groceries at the discount chain, and I haven't had a vacation in 3 years. But I'm independent. I pay my own bills, fix my own problems, and don't ask anyone for anything. Not that anyone would notice. The family dynamics were established early. I remember being 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table in our old house on Elm Street, working on my math homework while Mom fussed over 9-year-old Derek's science project. It was something about the solar system. Derek had waited until the night before it was due to start it naturally. "Sarah, honey, can you get your own snack?" Mom called over her shoulder while she helped Derek paint Jupiter's red spot with watercolors. "Mommy's busy helping your brother right now." I walked to the pantry and made myself a peanut butter sandwich on Wonder Bread, the chunky Skippy kind because Derek didn't like smooth. I remember thinking even then that it was funny how I could make my own snack, but Derek couldn't make his own science project. That became the pattern. Derek would struggle, and everyone would rally to help him. I would struggle, and I'd hear, "You're so smart, Sarah. You'll figure it out." When Derek was failing algebra in 10th grade, Dad hired Mrs. Chen from down the street to tutor him twice a week at $20 an hour. When I was struggling with AP chemistry my senior year, I was told to ask your teacher for extra help and maybe watch some YouTube videos. When Derek's transmission died during his junior year of college, Mom and Dad scraped together $2,800 to fix it. When my laptop crashed during finals week of my sophomore year at community college, I was told that the library had computers I could use. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bitter about Derek having kids. Emma and Tyler are great kids, and I love being Aunt Sarah. But the way the family treats Derek's needs versus mine, that's been consistent for 27 years. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning in October. I was sitting at my desk at Morrison Associates, reconciling accounts receivable for Hartley Construction, when my personal cell phone rang. Unknown number, but something made me pick it up. Is this Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell? Yes, this is Sarah. Ms. Mitchell, this is Richard Brennan from Brennan, Walsh Associates in Boston. I represent the estate of Edith Thornton. Are you familiar with that name? I paused, my fingers hovering over my keyboard. Edith Thornton. I think she was my great aunt, my grandmother's sister. I only met her once or twice when I was little. That's correct. Ms. Mitchell, I'm calling because you've been named as the primary beneficiary in Ms. Thornton's will. She passed away last month, and after all debts and taxes, you're inheriting approximately $9 million. The words hit me like cold water. I actually looked around to see if anyone in the office had heard, but Karen from payroll was arguing with someone on the phone about W-2s, and Mike was eating his usual tuna sandwich while scrolling through ESPN. I'm sorry, did you say $9 million? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Thornton was quite successful in real estate investments over the years. She never married, had no children, and apparently felt a connection to you, specifically. There's a letter she wrote explaining her decision, which I'll include with the paperwork. I scheduled an appointment to meet with him the following week, hung up, and sat there staring at my computer screen showing Hartley Construction's outstanding invoices. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. $9 million. I'd never even had $9,000 at one time. Aunt Edith's letter was typed on cream-colored paper with her initials embossed at the top. Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably very confused. I'm sure your family barely remembers me. I was never close to your grandmother Mary after she married your grandfather. Different values, you might say. But I remembered you from the few times we met. You were maybe 8 or 9 the last time, at Mary's funeral, while all the adults were making small talk, and your brother was running around the funeral home making noise. You were sitting quietly in the corner reading a book. When I asked you about it, you told me all about Island of the Blue Dolphins and how Karana was brave because she had to survive on her own. I was struck by that conversation, and over the years I've kept track of your family through Christmas cards and the occasional update from distant relatives. I know you put yourself through school. I know you've built a career and a life without asking for handouts. I know you've never married or had children, which some people probably see as a failure, but I see as independence. I was a lot like you, Sarah. I built my wealth through careful investments and real estate over 40 years. I never had anyone to share it with, and I never felt the need to apologize for that. I'm leaving the bulk of my estate to you because I believe you'll use it wisely. Not because you need rescuing, you've proven you don't, but because you've earned it through your character. The others in your family will want to know why they weren't included. You can tell them, or not. That's your choice. Live well, dear. Edith. I read that letter 5 times sitting in the lawyer's office in Boston, while Mr. Brennan explained trusts and tax implications and investment options. By the time I left, I had a cashier's check for $50,000 as an immediate distribution, paperwork for accessing the rest, and a head spinning with possibilities. And I had made a decision. I wasn't telling anyone. Not yet. Keeping $9 million secret is harder than you'd think, especially when you're used to counting every penny. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans, all 23,147 of them. The relief of that was incredible, like someone had been sitting on my chest for 6 years and suddenly got up. But I kept living exactly the same way. Same apartment, same car, same Target clothes, same Kraft macaroni and cheese for dinner. I opened a high-yield savings account and left most of the money there while I figured out what to do next. I did start sleeping better, though, and I stopped checking my bank balance obsessively before buying groceries. Small changes, but it felt like I could breathe deeper. The hardest part was family dinners. We have dinner at Mom and Dad's house every other Sunday, a tradition that started when Derek got married and Jessica decided we needed more family time. It's always the same. Mom makes pot roast or baked chicken. Dad complains about his back or the government. Derek talks about work or the kids. Jessica shows everyone pictures on her phone, and I mostly listen and help with dishes. The Sunday after I met with the lawyer, I was standing in Mom's kitchen, loading the dishwasher while she packed leftovers for Derek and Jessica to take home. The smell of Dawn dish soap and Downy fabric softener, Mom always runs the washing machine during dinner, filled the small space. Derek's been so stressed about the mortgage, Mom was saying, dividing the leftover green bean casserole into 2 Tupperware containers. Interest rates are just killing them, and with Emma's orthodontist bills. She always does this, talks to me about Derek's problems like I'm supposed to have solutions. Or maybe she just needs to talk to someone, and I'm the one without kids to rush home to. They'll figure it out, I said, loading the last of the dessert plates. Derek always does. I just wish we could help more, you know? But with Dad's arthritis getting worse, we're looking at all these medical bills ourselves. I almost said it then, almost said, "Actually, Mom, I could help." But something stopped me. Maybe it was remembering all the times I'd needed help and been told I'd figure it out. Maybe it was imagining Derek's face when he found out his little sister, the family afterthought, suddenly had enough money to solve all his problems. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to stop being invisible yet. Derek's smart, I said instead. He'll find a way. Mom smiled at me in that absent way she does, already thinking about something else. You're so sweet, Sarah. Always so understanding. Understanding. Right. Over the next 2 months, I had several close calls. The first was when my car finally died. The Sentra's transmission gave up on a rainy Thursday morning in the Morrison Associates parking lot. I called ILA and had it towed to Jimmy's auto repair, where Jimmy, a 60-something guy with permanent grease under his fingernails, delivered the bad news. "It's going to be about $3,000 to fix it right," he said, wiping his hands on a red shop rag. "Transmission's shot, and with a car that age. Honestly, you might want to think about getting something else." The old me would have panicked. $3,000 was more than I had in my checking account before Aunt Edith. I would have called my parents, stressed about borrowing money, maybe looked into taking the bus to work. Instead, I heard myself saying, "What could I get for a decent used car?" "How much you looking to spend?" I almost said $15,000. Enough for a reliable certified pre-owned Honda or Toyota with low mileage, but I caught myself just in time. "Maybe $8,000? I said. "Something reliable but not fancy." Jimmy nodded approvingly. "Smart girl, let me make some calls." I ended up with a 2016 Honda Civic with 47,000 miles on it. Pearl white, nothing fancy, but it had Bluetooth and got great gas mileage. I paid cash, which raised Jimmy's eyebrows slightly, but I told him I'd been saving up for a car replacement fund. The second close call was at Target 2 weeks later. I was buying my usual groceries, generic pasta, store-brand tomato sauce, the cheapest lunch meat, when I found myself in the wine section. Before Aunt Edith, I bought wine maybe 3 times a year, and it was always the 6. 99 bottles with names like Coastal Creek Merlot. But I found myself looking at a bottle of Caymus Cabernet Sauvignon for $89.99. I'd read about it in Food Wine magazine at the dentist's office. Apparently it was supposed to be incredible. I was standing there holding it, imagining what it would taste like with a good steak, when I heard someone call my name. "Sarah? Sarah Mitchell?" I turned around to see Janet Murphy, Derek's next-door neighbor. Janet was one of those women who somehow always looked like she'd just stepped out of a salon, even grocery shopping on a Tuesday afternoon. "Oh, hi, Janet," I said, quickly putting the wine back on the shelf. "How are you, sweetie? I was just talking to Jessica the other day about how hard you work. Still at that accounting place downtown?" "Morrison Associates, yeah, 6 years now." Janet's eyes flicked to my shopping cart, the generic pasta, the store-brand everything. Then she looked at where I'd just put back the expensive wine. "Well," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, "we all have to treat ourselves sometimes, right?" I felt my cheeks burn. Oh, that? I was just looking. Curiosity. Of course, Janet said. Well, give my love to your family. Tell Derek I said hi. I finished my shopping with my heart pounding, wondering if Janet would mention seeing me looking at expensive wine to Jessica, who would mention it to Derek, who might wonder where I got the idea I could afford an 89 bottle of wine. My 35th birthday was coming up in January. Normally, this would mean dinner at Olive Garden with Mom, Dad, Derek, Jessica, and the kids, my annual celebration, where we'd split appetizers, Derek would joke about my age, and someone would inevitably comment on how I should start thinking about settling down before it's too late. But this year, I had an idea. What if I threw myself a real birthday party? What if, for once, I was the center of attention? What if I finally got to be the one people made a fuss over? I started planning in December. I rented the private dining room at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown that I'd always wanted to try but could never afford. The room held 20 people and came with a prix-fixe menu, 3 courses including wine pairings for $95 per person. I invited 12 people: Mom, Dad, Derek, Jessica, the kids, my college friend Amy, who I'd stayed in touch with, my coworker Lisa, and a few other friends I'd made over the years, but rarely got to see because I was always too broke to go out. The invitations were printed on heavy cardstock, none of this Facebook event bullshit. I handwrote each one. You're invited to celebrate Sarah's 35th birthday. Saturday, January 15th, 7 p.m., Marcello's restaurant, private dining room dinner, and drinks included. Just bring yourself. When I said dinner and drinks included, I meant it. I was paying for everything. For once in my life, I was going to be the generous one. The look on Mom's face when she opened the invitation was worth every penny. Sarah, honey, this is very fancy. Are you sure you can afford this? It's my birthday, Mom. I've been saving up. But Marcello's is so expensive. I can handle it. Derek's reaction was more direct. He called me the day after I sent the invitations. Sar, what's with the fancy birthday party? You know we're all dealing with Christmas bills right now. You don't have to pay for anything, Derek. I told you it's included. But still, Marcello's? That place is like $50 a plate. It's fine. I've been planning this for months. I just don't want you to get in over your head financially. Remember when you put that laptop on your credit card in college? You were paying that off for 2 years. I wanted to tell him that I could buy 100 laptops now and not even notice. Instead, I said, I appreciate your concern, but I've got it handled. Okay, but if you need us to chip in. Derek, I've got it handled. January 15th was a Saturday, and I spent the morning getting ready in a way I hadn't in years. I went to the good salon. Not great clips, but Antonio's, where a cut and color cost $180. I had my nails done at the place in the mall, not just painted, but actually shaped and polished properly. And I bought a new dress. Not from Target or Kohl's, but from Nordstrom. A black wrap dress that cost $240 and made me look like I actually had some money, which, technically, I did. I felt nervous and excited as I got ready in my apartment. The smell of Pantene shampoo from my freshly washed hair mixed with the vanilla candle I'd lit to cover up the lingering 5-spice from downstairs. I'd even bought new lipstick, MAC Ruby Woo, that cost $19, but made me feel like a different person. At 6:30, I was standing in front of Marcello's, watching my family and friends arrive. The restaurant was everything I'd imagined: warm lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of place where the waiters knew about wine pairings and didn't look at you funny if you ordered an appetizer as your main course. Mom and Dad arrived first, Dad looking uncomfortable in his good suit, Mom wearing her navy dress from Jessica and Derek's wedding, then Amy, looking gorgeous as always in something effortlessly chic, then Lisa from work, then Derek and Jessica with the kids. Emma and Tyler were dressed up and on their best behavior, which meant Emma was only complaining a little about having to wear tights, and Tyler wasn't wiping his nose on his sleeve. Jessica looked stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than I used to make in a week, and Derek was wearing the charcoal gray suit he wore to work presentations. Sarah, this place is beautiful, Amy said, hugging me tight. Look at you, birthday girl. Happy birthday, Aunt Sarah. Emma threw her arms around my waist. Mommy says we get to order anything we want. That's right, kiddo. It's a special night. The private dining room was perfect, intimate but not cramped, with a view of the city lights through tall windows. Everyone settled in, looking around at the elegant table settings and the wine glasses that were already being filled with champagne for a toast. Sarah, Mom said, looking a little overwhelmed, this is so nice. You really shouldn't have spent so much money. It's my birthday, Mom. I wanted to do something special. Derek raised his champagne glass. Well, I have to say, Sar, you really outdid yourself. This is probably the fanciest restaurant I've been to since our wedding. To Sarah, Jessica added, raising her own glass. The most generous sister-in-law in the world. Everyone toasted, and I felt that warm glow of being the center of attention, of being the one who made something special happen. For once, I wasn't sitting at someone else's table, grateful to be included. This was my table. The dinner was incredible. We started with antipasti. Real prosciutto di Parma, fresh mozzarella that tasted nothing like the stuff from the grocery store, olives that had been marinated in herbs I couldn't identify. The wine, a Brunello di Montalcino that I'd let the sommelier choose, was smooth and complex and probably cost more per bottle than I used to spend on groceries in a month. For the main course, I'd chosen the osso buco, which came with risotto so creamy and perfect that I had to resist moaning out loud. Around the table, everyone was having similar revelations. Dad, who usually complained that restaurant food was overpriced, was savoring every bite of his seafood linguine. Mom kept commenting on how professional everything was. The kids were happy with their pasta and garlic bread, and Tyler was being surprisingly well behaved, probably overwhelmed by the fancy surroundings. We were just finishing the main course when it happened. I'd excused myself to use the restroom, leaving my purse at the table like I always did. It was a small clutch, nothing fancy, just big enough for my phone, keys, lipstick, and wallet. What I'd forgotten was the letter I'd gotten that morning from Brennan, Walsh Associates, something about quarterly statements and tax documents. I'd stuck it in my purse to look at later and forgotten about it. When I came back from the restroom, Derek was holding the letter, and everyone at the table was staring at me. Sarah, Derek said slowly, what is this? My stomach dropped. The letter was on official letterhead, and I could see from Derek's expression that he'd read enough to understand what it meant. That's private mail, Derek. Private mail about a $9 million inheritance? The table went completely silent. Even Tyler stopped playing with his breadstick. You inherited $9 million? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Amy looked confused. Lisa looked shocked. Jessica's mouth was literally hanging open. The kids didn't understand what was happening, but they could sense the tension. When? Derek continued, still holding the letter. When did this happen? October, I said quietly. October? You've known since October and you didn't tell us? It was private. Private? Derek's voice was getting louder. Sarah, we're your family. You've been sitting on $9 million for 3 months while we've been struggling with bills and worrying about money. Derek, please keep your voice down. We're in a restaurant. I don't care where we are. This is unbelievable. Do you have any idea what this money could mean for our family? Jessica was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Sarah, why didn't you say anything? We could have helped you figure out what to do with it. I knew what to do with it just fine. But Derek has been so stressed about the mortgage, Mom said, looking back and forth between us. And the kids' expenses. If we'd known you had this kind of money? What, Mom? If you'd known what? Well, family helps family, doesn't it? There it was. The expectation I'd been dreading for 3 months. Derek was shaking his head in disbelief. I can't believe this. All those times you let us pay for dinner, all those times we bought your Christmas presents because we thought you were struggling. I never asked you to do any of that. You didn't have to ask. We did it because we care about you, because you're family, and the whole time, you were secretly sitting on more money than any of us will ever see. It's my money, Derek. But don't you think, I mean, you don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage or college funds to worry about. Don't you think the right thing to do would be to share some of it? I looked around the table at all these faces I'd known my whole life, and I realized that everything had changed in the space of 5 minutes. I wasn't Sarah the accountant anymore, or Sarah the reliable one, or even Sarah the birthday girl. I was Sarah with $9 million, and suddenly, everyone had opinions about what I should do with it. Share it, I repeated slowly. Well, yeah, Derek said, like it was obvious. I mean, obviously it's your money, but you have to think about family. Emma needs a college fund. Tyler's probably going to need speech therapy. Our roof needs replacing, and Jessica's car is on its last legs. And your parents, Jessica added, reaching over to squeeze Mom's hand. Think about what you could do for them. They've given so much to both of you over the years. I looked at Mom and Dad, who were both staring down at their plates like they wished they could disappear. What do you think, Mom? Do you think I should share my inheritance? Mom looked up at me with those watery blue eyes that had always made me feel guilty about everything. Well, sweetie, I would never tell you what to do with your money, but Derek does have children to think about, and we've always been a family that takes care of each other. Takes care of each other? I repeated. Yes. Mom, when I needed money for textbooks my sophomore year of college, and I asked if I could borrow $200, what did you tell me? Mom looked uncomfortable. Sarah, that was years ago. You told me that I needed to learn to manage my money better, and that struggling a little would teach me responsibility. That's different. When Derek needed money to fix his transmission, you and Dad found $2,800. When I needed $200 for textbooks, I needed to learn responsibility. Derek was getting red in the face. That's not fair, Sarah. You're comparing completely different situations. You're right. They were different. Derek's situation involved a car. Mine involved my education. You're being ridiculous. We've always treated you fairly. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of sitting in this beautiful restaurant at my own birthday party, being lectured about fairness by people who had overlooked me for 34 years, was just too much. Fairly? Derek, when was the last time anyone in this family asked me how I was doing? When was the last time anyone asked if I needed help with anything? You never ask for help, Jessica said. You're so independent. I'm independent because I had to be, because every time I needed something I was told I'd figure it out. But Derek gets a pass on everything because he has kids. Kids are expensive, Sarah, Derek said. You don't understand because you don't have any. Right, I don't have kids, so I don't deserve consideration. I don't have a spouse, so my problems don't matter. I don't have a mortgage, so I don't need help. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Derek? Because it sounds like you're saying that because I chose a different life than you, I should subsidize yours. I'm saying that when someone in the family gets blessed with this kind of money, they should think about how they can help the people they love. Blessed. I set down my wine glass harder than I meant to. You think I was blessed with this money? You think it just fell from the sky? Well, yeah, you inherited it. You didn't earn it. I didn't earn it? Derek, do you know why Aunt Edith left me this money? Because she was old and probably senile? Because she remembered me. She remembered a conversation we had when I was 8 years old about a book I was reading. She remembered that I put myself through school. She remembered that I built a life without asking anyone for handouts. I pulled out my phone and showed Derek the photos I'd taken of Aunt Edith's letter. She kept track of our family for years, Derek. She knew about your wedding, your kids, your house. She knew about all of us, and she chose to leave her money to me. Derek read the letter, his face getting redder with each line. This is bullshit, he said finally. So what? She thought I was some kind of loser because I needed help sometimes? No, Derek. She thought I deserved something good for once. The table was completely silent except for the soft jazz playing in the background and the murmur of conversation from the main dining room. Even the kids were quiet, sensing that something big was happening even if they didn't understand what. Look, Derek said finally, his voice calmer but still tight with frustration. I'm not saying you have to give us all your money, but surely you can see that spreading some of it around would be the right thing to do. I mean, what are you even going to do with $9 million? I don't know yet. Exactly. You don't even have a plan. But I do. We could pay off our house, set up college funds for the kids, maybe buy mom and dad a decent car since theirs is falling apart. We could actually use the money for important things. And what I might want to do with it isn't important. Like what? Buy more fancy dinners. Get a bigger apartment. I stared at my brother, this man I'd looked up to my entire childhood, who had never once asked me what my dreams were. Maybe I want to quit my job and go back to school. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to start a business or buy a house or move to Paris. Maybe I want to donate it to charity or invest it in something meaningful. Maybe I just want to have the security of knowing I'll never have to choose between rent and groceries again. But Sarah, Mom said gently, you could have all of that and still help Derek with the kids' college funds. Could I, Mom? Because it sounds like Derek thinks I should pay off his mortgage, buy you and Dad a car, set up college funds, and probably cover Jessica's car payment too. How much of my inheritance would be left after I take care of everyone else's needs? You'd still have millions left over, Derek said. Ah, so I get to keep the leftovers of my own inheritance. How generous. Don't be sarcastic, Sarah. This is serious. You're right, it is serious, because what you're really asking me is to go back to being the same person I've always been, the one who takes care of everyone else's problems while mine don't matter. Your problems? Jessica laughed, but it wasn't a nice sound. Sarah, what problems do you have? You have no kids, no mortgage, no real responsibilities. The biggest problem in your life is whether to buy name brand or generic pasta. The table went dead silent. Amy, who had been quiet through most of this, finally spoke up. Wow. Jessica, that was really cruel. I'm just being honest. Sarah acts like she's had this hard life, but she's had it easier than any of us. She only has to worry about herself. I felt something inside me snap. Easier? I stood up from the table. You think I've had it easier? Sarah, please sit down, Dad said quietly. People are starting to stare. Let them stare. Jessica, since you think my life is so easy, let me tell you about it. I wake up every morning to the sound of my upstairs neighbor's TV because the walls in my apartment are paper thin. I haven't been to a doctor in 2 years because my insurance has a $5,000 deductible. I buy my clothes at Target and my groceries at the discount chain, and I haven't had a vacation since 2019. But you chose that life, Derek said. I chose that life? I chose to be ignored by my own family? I chose to have my problems dismissed? I chose to watch everyone rally around you every time you needed help while I was told to figure it out? Sarah, Mom said, tears in her eyes now, we never meant to make you feel that way. But you did, Mom. You all did. For 34 years, you made me feel like I was the family afterthought. And now that I have something good happen to me, something that's finally just mine, you want me to give it away. Not give it away, Derek said. Share it with family. Why? Because that's what families do. Is it? Because I've been part of this family my whole life, and I've never seen anyone share anything with me. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope I'd prepared weeks ago, before any of this happened. Inside were 12 cashier's checks, one for each person at the table except me. You know what? I said, opening the envelope. You're right. Families should share. I started handing out the checks. Mom and Dad got $5,000 each. Derek and Jessica got $10,000. Even the kids got $1,000 each for their college funds. Amy and Lisa and my other friends got $1,000 each. There, I said, as everyone stared at their checks in shock. I shared, just like family should. Sarah, Mom whispered, looking at her check. This is too much. Is it, Mom? Because 5 minutes ago, Derek was telling me I should pay off his mortgage. That would be about $400,000. Jessica was suggesting I buy you and Dad a new car. That's another $40,000. College funds for Emma and Tyler would be what? Another $200,000? So compared to what you all thought I should give, $5,000 is nothing. Derek was staring at his check, like he couldn't believe it was real. Sarah, I don't know what to say. How about thank you, or happy birthday, or maybe I'm sorry for demanding money that wasn't mine? I wasn't demanding. Yes, you were. You all were. The minute you found out I had money, you started calculating how much of it you deserved. Jessica was crying now. Sarah, that's not... We just thought... You thought what? That I owed you something? That because I don't have kids or a husband, my money should automatically go to people who do? We just thought you'd want to help, Jessica said through her tears. I do want to help. That's why I just gave you $10,000. But wanting to help and being obligated to solve everyone else's problems are two different things. Derek was still staring at his check. Sarah, this is generous, but... But what? But it doesn't really solve anything long term. I mean, $10,000 won't pay off our mortgage or set up proper college funds. I actually laughed out loud. Are you seriously complaining about the amount of free money I just gave you? I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. You're just saying it's not enough. Just like it's never enough, right, Derek? Just like you'll always need just a little more help. Just one more favor. Just one more bailout. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would be if you had ever once asked me how I was doing before you found out I had money. Fair would be if anyone in this family had ever celebrated my achievements the way you celebrate Derek's. Fair would be if I got the benefit of the doubt instead of being lectured about responsibility every time I needed something. I looked around the table at all these faces I'd known my entire life, and I realized something had fundamentally changed. The invisible chains that had bound me to their expectations for 34 years had finally broken. I want you all to listen to me very carefully, I said, sitting back down and smoothing my dress. I am not paying off anyone's mortgage. I am not buying anyone a car. I am not funding anyone's lifestyle or solving anyone's problems. What I just gave you is a gift, not an installment payment on future obligations. Sarah, Dad spoke up for the first time in several minutes, we never meant to make you feel like you owed us anything. Didn't you, Dad? Because the first thing out of everyone's mouth when they found out about the inheritance was what I should do with it for other people. We just care about you, Mom said weakly. Do you? Because caring about me would mean asking what I want to do with my life, not telling me how to spend my money. Caring about me would mean celebrating that something good finally happened to me, not calculating how much of it you think you deserve. Amy reached over and squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. Derek shot her a look. Easy for you to say. You just got $1,000 for eating dinner. And you just got $10,000 for being related to someone? Amy shot back. Maybe try a little gratitude. I'm grateful, Derek said, but his tone suggested otherwise. I just think Sarah's being a little harsh about all this. Harsh? Derek, I just paid for a $3,000 dinner for 12 people and handed out $40,000 in cash. How exactly am I being harsh? By acting like we're terrible people for thinking you might want to help your family. I don't think you're terrible people. I think you're selfish people. There's a difference. Jessica gasped. Sarah, that's a horrible thing to say. Is it? Let me ask you something, Jessica. In the 6 years you've been married to my brother, how many times have you asked me about my job? What? My job. How many times have you asked me how work was going, or if I liked what I was doing, or what my goals were? Jessica looked genuinely confused. I don't know. We talk about lots of things. We talk about Derek's work. We talk about the kids. We talk about your work. But when do we ever talk about mine? You never seemed like you wanted to talk about it. I never seemed like I wanted to talk about it because no one ever asked. Just like no one ever asked if I was happy, or if I was lonely, or if I had dreams beyond reconciling accounts receivable for construction companies. The table fell silent again. Tyler was starting to get restless, and Emma was playing with her napkin, clearly bored by the adult conversation. Look, I said, my voice calmer now. I love you all. I love Derek, even though he's been a selfish ass tonight. I love you, Jessica, even though you just told me my life is worthless because I don't have kids. I love you, Mom and Dad, even though you've spent 34 years treating me like the backup child. Sarah, Mom started, but here's what's going to change. I'm not going to be the family safety net anymore. I'm not going to be the one who's always available to help because I don't have real responsibilities. I'm not going to be grateful for scraps of attention while Derek gets the feast. I stood up again, and this time I picked up my purse. Where are you going? Derek asked. Home. This dinner is paid for, including dessert and coffee. The checks I gave you are real. You can cash them tomorrow, but don't expect any more family meetings about my finances. Sarah, please don't leave like this, Mom said, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, and for a moment I was 8 years old again, wanting nothing more than my mother's approval and attention. Mom, I have spent my entire life trying to earn a place at this table, trying to be good enough, quiet enough, undemanding enough to deserve your love. And tonight, when I finally had something to celebrate, something that was just mine, you all made it about Derek. That's not what we meant to do, she said, tears running down her cheeks. I know, but it's what you did anyway. 6 months later. I'm writing this from my new apartment, a 2-bedroom place in the good part of downtown with a view of the river and walls thick enough that I can't hear my neighbors. I bought it with cash, along with furniture that doesn't smell like Five Spice and a car that starts every time I turn the key. I also quit my job at Morrison Associates. My last day was March 15th, exactly 2 months after my birthday dinner. I'm going back to school in the fall, getting my MBA from the State University. At 35, I'll be older than most of my classmates, but for the first time in my life, I don't care what other people think about my timeline. The family has adjusted to the new dynamic in various ways. Derek cashed his check and used it to pay down some credit card debt. He's never mentioned the inheritance again, but I know from Mom that he and Jessica are still struggling with their mortgage. He calls less often now, and when we do talk, there's a strain there that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was always there, and I just didn't notice it when I was so grateful for any attention at all. Jessica sent me a thank you note for the money, which was more acknowledgement than I expected. She's been polite but distant at family gatherings, like she's not sure what to make of this new version of me. Mom and Dad used their money to fix the roof on their house, something they'd been putting off for 3 years. Mom calls me more often now, which is sweet, though I can tell she's still trying to understand what happened at my birthday dinner. She keeps saying things like, I hope you know we've always loved you just as much as Derek, which tells me she's starting to recognize that maybe that wasn't as obvious as she thought. The kids adapted fastest, the way kids do. Emma asked me if I was rich now, and when I said kind of, she asked if that meant I could buy her a pony. I told her I was rich enough to take her to the horse stables for riding lessons, which seemed like a reasonable compromise. Tyler just wanted to know if my new apartment had a pool. It does. And if he could come swimming, he can. As for the money itself, I've been careful with it. Most of it is invested in a diversified portfolio that should grow steadily over time. I set aside enough to pay for my MBA without loans, and I'm looking at buying a small rental property as an investment. I also donated $100,000 to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, kids like I was, who have to figure everything out on their own. But the best thing I did with the money was take a trip to Europe in April. 3 weeks, all by myself, staying in nice hotels and eating in good restaurants and seeing things I'd only dreamed about. I stood in the Louvre looking at the Mona Lisa, ate gelato in Rome, watched the sunset over Santorini, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. People ask me if I regret how I handled things at my birthday dinner, if I think I was too harsh, or if I wish I'd been more generous with the money. The answer is no. For 34 years, I played by rules that were designed to keep me small. I was the good daughter, the understanding sister, the one who never made waves or asked for too much. I was so busy being grateful for whatever scraps of love and attention came my way that I never stopped to ask if I deserved more. Aunt Edith's inheritance didn't just give me financial freedom. It gave me permission to want things, permission to value myself, permission to say no to people who had trained me to always say yes. Derek still doesn't understand why I didn't pay off his mortgage. In his mind, I had more money than I could ever spend, and he had a family to support. To him, the math was simple, but it was never about the math. It was about the fact that even when I had $9 million, his first instinct was to tell me how I should spend it. It was about the fact that finding out I was wealthy didn't make him proud of me or happy for me. It just made him calculate how much he could get. That tells you everything you need to know about our relationship and about how this family has always worked. I'm 35 now, and I'm starting over in a lot of ways. I'm single, I'm childless, and according to Jessica, my biggest problem is still choosing between name brand and generic pasta, though now I can afford the name brand, along with the organic, artisanal, imported kind if I want it. But I'm also free in a way I've never been before. Free from the weight of everyone else's expectations. Free from the need to earn love through service. Free to build a life that's actually mine. I still see my family regularly. We have dinner at Mom and Dad's every other Sunday, same as always. But now when Derek talks about his problems, I listen and offer sympathy instead of solutions. When Mom mentions that Dad needs dental work, I suggest they look into payment plans instead of offering to pay for it. When Jessica complains about Emma's orthodontist bills, I nod and change the subject. They're learning to see me differently, and I'm learning to see myself differently too. Last Sunday, Emma asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, the way 8-year-olds do. Without thinking, I said, happy. But what job? She pressed. I don't know yet, I told her. But for the first time in my life, I get to choose. Derek overheard this conversation, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Maybe recognition, maybe regret. Maybe just confusion about this sister he thought he knew, but apparently never did. Later, as I was helping clear the table, he pulled me aside. Sarah, he said quietly, I want you to know that I'm happy for you. About the money, I mean. I know I didn't act like it at your birthday, but I am happy that good things are happening to you. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was acknowledgement, which was more than I expected. Thanks, Derek, I said. That means something. And I want you to know that you're a good person, a generous person, what you gave us at dinner. You didn't have to do that. I know. But you did it anyway. I did it because I love you, all of you, even when you drive me crazy. He smiled at that, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. You know, he said, I think I'm finally starting to understand why Aunt Edith chose you. And for the first time since that October phone call that changed everything, I felt like maybe my family was starting to understand it too. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm 35 years old, I have $9 million, and I'm finally visible, even to myself,